when you get out here, you can see it, and you can see why it's so important.
The long road south ends in bayou country, where generations of people that rely on the marshes continue to see them washed away. With more open water, storms are able to feed off of it, like Hurricane Ida did, causing the storm to remain a Category 4 farther inland than expected.
The storm surge comes right in over open water and can push further and further inland with greater force.
Research says a football field of land is washed away every 100 minutes, or an area the size of Lafayette is stripped off like a ribbon from the coast every couple of years.
Well, we've got sea level coming up everywhere in the world, but we're actually sinking at a greater rate. So we have the sea level rise, that difference today here in Louisiana, that everyone else is going to have in about 50 years.
There are efforts to slow down the land loss and protect the communities along the coast. Alongside the Pointe-au-Chien tribe, the Coalition to Restore Coastal Louisiana has been identifying areas that need protecting.
So we know that it's going to have as much of an impact as it possibly can.
By taking oyster shells off of New Orleans restaurant tables and making them into reefs. Once the shells are dried out and packed up, they are lined around the marsh. The first reef was built in 2019 and fared better than the unprotected areas following Ida and daily waves from boats.
Every time you come down here for reef monitoring or things, you can just tell that there are areas that are eroding away.
So why shells rather than a big levee like in New Orleans? LSU researchers say it all comes down to protecting the way of life in the southernmost parishes with a mix of natural and man-made protections.
If we did that, we wouldn't have any of the interaction of the wetlands with the coastal waters. That would affect our fisheries. That would affect the system substantially.
Some projects meant to help will also impact local fishermen. But groups like CRCL say that the saltwater of the Gulf is creeping into the bayous and something needs to be done. Coastal meteorology professor Paul Miller says it can be hard to attribute a certain amount of erosion to any one storm like Ida, but over time it's evident it's happening.
You have to kind of consider the net effects of wetland erosion over the scale of decades or even centuries for that to become a really appreciable effect, which makes it very easy in any given budget cycle to say, oh, we'll worry about it later.
For those living along the coast in Louisiana, they can't worry about it later. With storms like Hurricane Ida that barreled into the vulnerable marshland, they are working one shell at a time to make change. In Montague, I'm Shannon Hecht.